The last 2 decades of the 20th century were a golden age of technology. The rise of cell phones, the World Wide Web, personal computing, autonomous drones.
Change is occurring so rapidly that even those involved find it difficult to keep pace.
Witnessing every milestone was the TV series Beyond 2000. Its presenters travelled the globe, searching for innovations that would give us a glimpse into the future. Now that we're in the future, it's time to look back at the tech that did and didn't change the world. From the iconic to the offbeat.
Ready?
We're travelling back.
Fire.
Before 2000. The 80s and 90s were stacked with game-changing inventions. From space exploration to high-speed travel. But when lives were on the line, innovation became a hero.
Technology has been the #1 thing that has allowed humans to survive things that we really shouldn't.
And as we saw this play out time and time again, the demand for safety inventions boomed.
In the 80s, there was a reasonable amount of prosperity, and we expected more and we wanted more. There was more government regulation, and the government started saying, hang on, if you want people to get in cars, if you want people to do all these activities, they got to be safe.
It forced industries to evolve with speed. From giant leaps in transport safety to disaster defence systems and tech to protect us when we pushed our bodies to the extreme.
The stakes are particularly high. Like, this is the highest stakes you can get. And so because the stakes are so high, that drives the creativity and the innovation.
These were creations that set out to protect us in our homes, on the road, in hospitals, and to save the world. In 1986 Australia, there wasn't a more idyllic way to explore our waterways than yachting. It was usually plain sailing.
Surprising as it may seem, very few yachts ever actually sink. And this is a perfectly sound 8-metre yacht, but today we're going to do everything possible to make her sink. All 4 plugs are open, and any minute Laszlo's going to hill the boat completely, so hopefully she'll actually sink. I think she's going to go.
The point of this stage scuttling? To demo the world's first yacht flotation device.
To get apart, we should actually see the boat rise from the murky depths any second from now.
The float pack claimed to make small vessels unsinkable by tying 2 underwater lift bags under the bow and stern.
Okay, that's a great idea. Oh, boy, there it is!
Look at that. Come on, let's do it.
Now, just before we sank, Laszlo released a valve on an air tank. It filled the float packs with compressed air, giving each bag almost a ton of buoyancy.
But then, that sinking feeling.
We're going down, Laszlo.
Is it? Going down?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God, I don't believe it.
An underwater investigation revealed the problem. A float pack had come loose. But after a quick replacement, like a phoenix rising, she came back to life.
Well, she may look just a little the worse for wear. Almost certainly she'll need a new jib because that was ripped in the salvage attempt. These float pack bags cost around about $600, which may sound like a lot of money, but they've certainly given this boat a new lease of life.
Obviously, we know that creating buoyancy is going to pull something up from the bottom of the ocean, but being able to do it at that scale is actually really impressive.
Today's float packs are even more remarkable. A single bag can lift 10 times that yacht's weight, making them more valuable for marine salvage and military operations than small boat sinkings. Backtracking to 1985, and we discovered a more sophisticated test of a well-known safety system.
Ready? Fire.
The pilot ejection seat.
Well, we made it. Seats like these have saved many thousands of pilots' lives around the world since they were first introduced. And today, some very unorthodox techniques are being used to get people safely out of aircraft.
Enter rocket power. We'd used it to fuel space shuttles and cars. Now it was boosting fighter jet safety to new heights.
This is the Martin Baker Mark 10 seat, similar to that fitted in the RAAF's F-18 fighter. Underneath the seat, the rocket, which burns for a quarter of a second after the seat's left the aircraft, develops between 4,000 and 5,000 pounds of thrust, which is equal to that of a small jet engine.
It packed enough punch to fire from a grounded aircraft and still guarantee survival.
And in fact, the harnesses here, there are leg restraints so that his legs do not flail outside of the seat when he leaves the aircraft, and also optional arm restraints as well. And we're testing just how good this harness is in this special rig, and we're now going to become inverted. Okay, fellas. And all I can say is they work very well indeed.
It was the latest innovation from a world leader in aviation safety, the Martin Baker Company. Over 7,700 pilots owe their lives to their seats. If rockets could launch pilots safely out of a jet, why not use them to save an entire plane?
Pull the chute. Come on, Jack, pull the chute.
Instead of firing seats, this rocket launched a parachute large enough to salvage a light aircraft.
The unit itself will go back in the airplane.
Boris Popov came up with the idea while falling 150 metres in a hang glider accident.
Pounds or so.
It was a frightening experience. I fell for about 20 seconds, so that's a lot of time for a lot of things to go through your mind. But it was motivational. It forced me to push the limits of parachute technology and led us to where we are today.
The Popov could pop off from as low as 90 metres above the ground and clip onto any type of ultralight, from hang gliders to small planes.
There are different size models used for different aircraft, but they all share the same basic elements. This one is like a survival kit for a Cessna pilot. It contains a pressure-packed parachute, a rocket here, separated by a blast shield, and underneath you can see the trigger mechanism, which is attached to the ripcord. If you want to use this, you have to pull on it with about the same force that you'd use to yank a heavy suitcase.
Which would deploy not one, but 2 parachutes. The device had already saved nearly 100 lives. Now Boris was planning Popovs for even larger planes.
I think with upcoming changes in materials, lighter weight materials, newer methods of deployment, we're not far away from seeing something that commercially runs.
To use a Popov chute system on an airliner would take about 21 parachutes, which is a lot. Plus, as a paying passenger, you never really want to feel like you're just free-falling. You always want the pilot to be in control.
The Popov never made it onto commercial flights, but it did make a mark in ultralight aviation. Since the 1980s, over 35,000 planes have sported the chute. It has saved nearly 400 lives. Five years earlier, the streets of Tokyo were battling a far more common killer. Drink driving and driver fatigue. But this primitive smartwatch promised to keep late-night revelers alive. Developed by Professor Karabay, it detected molecules in sweat. lactic acid, ammonia, and alcohol.
There's a tiny sensor in the back of the watch that's coated with enzymes that are designed to react with those 3 chemicals. That reaction creates an electric current, which is transmitted as a frequency and ends up on the screen. Professor, what does this result show you?
This red lines show that the lactic acid in the sweat, and increasing of the lactic acid is observed. This means that people are tired.
So this man should not be driving.
Yeah, of course. Suddenly you should stop at the automobile or something.
Okay, move over, Saki-san, I'll drive you home.
Biosensors are extraordinary because they can operate all the time and without you noticing. It's painless, it's accurate, and it's delivering that information in real time. That's an amazing development.
Professor Carabay could already see other ways they could keep humans safe.
This team's also working on a biosensor that would be fitted inside a toilet bowl. It would analyse a person's urine each morning and send the resulting data to the hospital. This lends itself to the detection and monitoring of bowel cancer and kidney and liver dysfunction. But ultimately, we're going to see biosensors implanted inside the human body so that a complete medical checkup would be as simple as passing your wrist over a barcode reader.
While implantable biosensors are still emerging, around 30% of Australians now use wearables to monitor their health and fitness.
You can now detect someone having a heart attack from their Apple Watch. You can monitor blood pressure. You can tell if someone's fallen over. It gives us the opportunity to actually get very early warnings of potential health problems and deal with them at the early stage when they might be curable. I mean, that's an extraordinary life-saving invention.
Before digital scams were a thing, crime fighting was an analogue world, targeting street crime, national security, and in 1987's America, the war on drugs.
This is where our story begins, in southern Florida. Just about every day, smugglers are bringing in millions of dollars of drugs. They come in supercharged speedboats or stolen planes like this one. These 2 pilots have just flown all the way from Colombia at about 100 feet above the water, only to be snared with their loot of cocaine just here on the outskirts of Miami. What you're seeing here is a scene in a technological and bloody war, the likes of which have really never been seen before in history. So, keep your hands high.
Each year, nearly 100,000 kilograms of cocaine and marijuana were pouring into Miami. And while arrests were common, the problem was spiralling out of control.
If you're smuggling drugs into the port of Miami, then obviously the region around Miami becomes sort of a hotbed for criminal activity. And that can spill out onto the streets, and that makes the policing job even harder. The police couldn't keep up.
Especially with crims getting smarter.
They're now using 2 planes, one being their anti-surveillance plane to pick up our surveillance. They had their own command post up in North Miami with Colombians there, able to communicate with Colombia, communicate with their landing site.
The Miami police were also stepping up their game with Blue Lightning, a $7 billion electronic barrier with 10 coastal radar stations. It was the only system in the country that could track low-flying smuggler planes. Once a target was detected, this small jet closed in.
In the belly is a forward-looking infrared camera. It's a sensitive, heat-sensing device which can track a smuggler's plane in pitch dark up to 4 kilometres away. But from the distance that they tail them, it can provide the visual evidence to get a conviction. Which Chris Ardell-Guinness was about to witness, but in broad daylight. By chance, a suspicious plane was spotted, and within minutes, the jet was in the sky, zeroing in on the rego number. While this chase didn't rely on infrared, the tech had been pivotal in many other cases. And today, we've found legions of life-saving uses for infrared.
You can use infrared in health and medicine. You can use infrared in detecting structural faults in buildings, for instance. It's very useful in places like in a jungle, for instance, where you may want to detect a species that is endangered. And so the technology isn't just used for crime and surveillance.
Meanwhile, in New York, policemen weren't into high-stakes confrontations. So they built the Remote Mobile Investigator, a robot that could dispose of bombs and negotiate with gunmen.
We're sending in a machine which has some of the senses of a police officer in place of a human police officer. For example, if a person is very excited and upset, the officer can come through the machine in a soothing, relaxed voice and get the person to calm down.
Equipped with a camera, loudspeaker, and shotgun, it promised to protect officers, but also stir up a storm.
Hostage negotiations, not that I've done one, but they require very, very high emotional intelligence, great people skills, reading body language. Imagine sending a robot to a violent confrontation, a pub brawl or a domestic violence thing. That is a terrible idea.
Not all situations allowed negotiation. In 1993 Los Angeles, a spate of vicious carjackings was leaving drivers and police powerless.
It happens so fast, in a matter of seconds. Someone can just pull up to you and point a gun at you or pull you out of the car. If they want your car, just go ahead and give them the car. Your life is more important than a car.
That advice is echoed by police all over the country. But drivers are assessing the merits of a new device that's intended to stop criminals in their tracks after the event.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
What are you doing?
The Auto Avenger had 3 layers of protection. It activated automatically when a door opened mid-drive. If not reset, it immobilized the car.
At this point, the car can't be restarted, and the Avenger has done its job. The switch location is known only to the driver. Now, that's the basic unit. If you want to step up in price...
Get out of the car. You are about to receive a 50,000-volt shock.
30 seconds after that warning, that short, sharp jolt is sent through the driver's seat. Not the sort of thing that anyone would want to sit around and experience.
50,000 volts. That's actually equivalent to a taser, which there's now increasing evidence that tasers do cause temporary brain damage. So it was a little bit punitive. It was a little bit kind of vigilante.
But if that's not enough, and you really want to draw some attention to the car, there's a further option.
A smoke flare caused a scene to scare off the most persistent thieves. But really, that was overkill. The job was already done.
The idea that if somebody doesn't have this kind of kill switch, that the car just becomes immobilized. I mean, it's simple, but it works. It's very clever. I mean, that was a precursor of so many of the security features that we have in cars today.
The Auto Avenger was perfect for the chaos of the city, but surviving the Australian bush demanded a more tactical and stealthy approach.
What I'm wearing, of course, is the Australian Army jungle greens. Giggle hat, shirt, pants, and basic webbing. But some rather interesting things are about to happen to the field dress uniform of the Australian soldier. Boots and all. Well, that's the field dress uniform that the Aussie soldier will be wearing up to the 21st century.
The disruptive patterned camo certainly disrupted some army traditionalists, but its odd shapes and shades helped soldiers blend into their surroundings.
It's only when you get out into the bush that you can see just how effective this disruptive camouflage pattern really is. There are 5 men hiding in this bush. One of them, Warrant Officer Scraggs, is wearing the old jungle greens. You may be able to see him. Would you stand up and move forward, please, Warrant Officer? But I doubt very much whether you can see the rest of us wearing our can't-see-me suits. All right, gentlemen, would you stand up, please, and move forward? And here we all are.
It didn't just hide soldiers, it hid armoured vehicles too.
Well, I've got my boots. I've got my camouflaged umbrella. And with a Leopard tank, I don't think anybody's really going to catch us. Okay, hit it.
For the next 30 years, infantry sported the jelly bean-like camo. It has since been updated with a new colour palette.
Across the world, defence and defence spending contributes to a ton of research and development. The stakes are particularly high. And so because the stakes are so high, that drives the creativity and the innovation to continue to innovate on what your even world-beating design wants.
The 1980s saw rapid medical advances. And in 1987, one of the most pivotal breakthroughs of the decade arrived. Amanda Keller leapt into the story leg first.
This is a magnetic resonance imager, or MRI machine, and it's using a magnetic field to look inside my leg. But it's no ordinary magnetic field. It's some 50,000 times more powerful than the magnetic field of the Earth. We were going to demonstrate that power by holding a spoon next to it, but I've been told that any metallic object in this room can become a deadly projectile. So this is the next best thing, the room next door. On the other side of the wall is the MRI machine, and as you can see, it still emits a very strong magnetic field. If the wall wasn't here, these objects would hit the machine at 160 kilometres per hour. But having said all that, it's perfectly harmless for human flesh. What it's doing to my leg is making the nuclei in every molecule point in the same direction.
But to generate the scan, the machine blasted a radio wave. It knocked the atoms out of alignment. And as they returned to their original state, tissues in the body sent back distinct signals. And the machine spat out a clear picture.
And here's my leg. Here's the muscle, the bone and the bone marrow, and what I'm told is a normal distribution of fat. Such an image has been available for over 5 years, but until now, no scanner has been able to pinpoint a tiny area of tissue and analyse its chemical composition.
In sections as small as 1 square millimetre, a computer could determine the makeup of any body structure, like Amanda's bones.
It has a peak of fat, but once again I'm told that's normal. Healthy bone marrow has fat, but no water. But a graph of another patient shows a water peak, which indicates leukemic cells in the bone marrow.
This new level of precision meant tumours and treatments could be monitored more effectively.
This is a highly toxic poison, and it's used to fight cancer cells. Inject too much and the side effects can be lethal. Inject too little and the cancer may spread. Thanks to MRI, a doctor can now assess the success of a treatment just 12 hours after the drugs have been administered.
The ability to actually look at how a tumour is responding to a particular treatment within a matter of hours or days was really extraordinary for that time, and continues to make a huge difference, because it means that you can change someone's medication very, very quickly onto something that potentially will work.
MRIs are now one of the most crucial diagnostic tools worldwide. Nearly 150 million scans are performed each year. And we've found even more uses for the technology.
MRIs have become much more powerful. They are able to pick up more, they are able to detect diseases at much earlier stages, but we also have a new innovation called functional MRI, or functional magnetic resonance imaging, and that actually tells you which areas of the brain are active at a certain time. So that has massive applications in research and just understanding how the brain works.
Early diagnosis was the best defence against disease. But in Japan, women valued their modesty over a mammogram from a male doctor.
They understood the risk of the cancer, but they were so shy to visit the hospital because especially breast is so making it shy.
But just throw in a robot controlled by a male and surely women will feel more comfortable.
To be honest, this specific robot is probably not encouraging me to go see a doctor more. It's an important innovation though. Computers and robots for that matter, they can crunch a lot of data in a really small amount of time.
And with greater precision. But to truly test its speed, accuracy and bedside manner, Simon Nash took one for the team. Any abnormal tissue would be detected and logged.
Well, my test has come up blue, which means I've got the all clear, but if I did have a tumour, it would look like this, that pink spot there, which would need a biopsy to find out whether it's cancerous or not. The whole process has taken just a couple of minutes, but it's a couple of minutes that could save somebody's life.
Robots may not be performing mammograms, but they are improving cancer screening, from the use of AI imaging to robotic biopsy assistance. Meanwhile, in the United States, 50% of the population were fighting another killer, arteriosclerosis.
Arterial sclerosis is the build-up of plaques, of material that essentially block or narrow the arteries. And if that artery is supplying blood to the muscles of the heart, then you're in trouble.
To avoid a heart attack, patients like Russell were faced with open heart surgery or a balloon angioplasty. Both were risky, and neither was a permanent fix.
But Russell's treatment was very different. He was one of the first recipients of a new device implanted in the arteries to keep them blockage-free. The device is called a stent, and it looks set to help hundreds of thousands of people like Russell bypass the bypass. It's a surgical stainless steel mesh that will permanently prop open the artery. Before it's inserted, it looks like this. But once inside, it's expanded against the artery walls and takes on this configuration. The stent is placed around the balloon and inserted into the appropriate artery. At the site of the blockage, the balloon's inflated. This expands the stent, the balloon is removed, and the artery is kept open.
The Palmas-Schatz stent was one of many being investigated around the world.
What we are trying to prove with this particular stent is that if it's successfully placed, it will buttress up the artery or support the artery long enough so that the artery will stay open forever. And so it's always better, if you can, to do one procedure rather than multiple procedures, and perhaps even avoid bypass surgery in some of these patients.
It was already proving successful. The device had given Russell a new lease on life and kept him out of the hospital.
Right now, I'm very high on it. I'm ready to go back and proceed just with a normal lifestyle. I think that from here on out, I won't have any more problems. I just feel very positive about the whole operation.
5 years later, the Palmas-Schatz stent became the first FDA-approved coronary stent. It has been implanted in 100 million patients since. In 1994, we met a rock star entrepreneur.
So most people would know Dean Kamen actually because he's the inventor of the Segway. But in fact, decades before that, Dean was prolific in inventions, particularly in the medical sphere. He has so many patents to his name. He's a pretty smart cookie, actually.
Dean had made millions revolutionising care for diabetics and amputees. Now, he was taking on kidney disease.
Our kidneys are made up of millions of filters and 225 kilometres of tubing. If they fail, then dialysis is used to artificially clean the circulating blood of toxins and to adjust the balance of fluids very carefully. Many patients are bound by a strict regime to visit a clinic several times a week, so they can be hooked up to apparatus like this, which takes over where their kidneys have given up.
24-year-old Frank had spent 2 years locked into that routine. Now he was liberated, thanks to Dean's portable dialysis system, Home Choice. It cleaned his kidneys during his sleep.
The system's made an enormous change in my lifestyle. My energy level is so high. I just have to do my 8-hour exchange at night, and I have all day to spend on my own. I feel really good.
Instead of bulky motors and pumps, Home Choice used an airflow-driven system that performed all the functions of dialysis.
This particular device employs a pneumatic manifold, which, using low-pressure air to press on this membrane, will pump the fluid. Using similar low-pressure air in these areas will valve the fluids, and a sophisticated software routine and some pressure transducers in the manifold are used to measure the quantity of fluid that's moved through this custom disposable.
That sounded complex, but for the patient, it was simple. Just insert the cassette and hook it up to the fluid.
Frank is still a test case for home choice. But Dean Kamen hopes that within the decade, his invention will improve the lives of tens of thousands of dialysis patients by providing them with an easy, reliable and cheap way to maintain as active a life as possible.
Home choice is now available in nearly 100 countries, and yet it's rarely used. Most patients still rely on hospital treatment.
Home dialysis would have been an extraordinary development, but there are barriers to it. It is a really intensive procedure, undergoing dialysis, and I think it would be quite intimidating. For a lot of people, they would actually prefer to do that in a hospital environment where other people are managing it for them.
Treacherous seas, snowstorms and unrelenting fires. Battling Mother Nature's fury pushed the limits of innovation. And what a Beyond 2000 host was willing to do for TV.
Well, this is to approximate what could happen in a bushfire if you had a blanket like this. All they really have to do is to survive 30 seconds as the flames pass. Shall we have a go?
My God, I can really feel, sort of can see the flames. I can't really feel them yet. It's not really hot in here. I can feel the heat. I can hear it burning.
Oh, boy, that was quite a frightening experience. You could feel the heat of the fire, although it didn't really feel so bad underneath. I was in there for about 30 seconds. It seemed quite a bit longer than that. I understand I could have stayed in there about 2 minutes. It was really hot, I understand, around about 1,000 degrees when that high-octane petrol hits the straw. I suppose I look a bit like a walking puff pastry, but there's no doubt in my mind that this gooey blanket just saved me from third-degree burns.
The blanket is made from a proprietary substance known as burn aid gel, and its makers are giving little away as to its exact composition. They will tell us, however, that it's just plain water that's within the gel that acts as a heat barrier between you and the flames. The water won't conduct heat and it won't easily evaporate because of its jelly-like consistency. In the house, ideal both to put out small fires and to treat burns. In a bushfire, though, it could be a lifesaver.
This sort of technology is hugely impressive. Obviously, fires are becoming more frequent and severe with climate change, so we really need to think about different ways we're going to keep ourselves, but also fire crews safe.
Fire blankets are now considered a vital survival tool in emergencies. But what if you wanted to avoid the flames altogether?
Here on the top floor of Sydney's Concord Hospital, geriatric and disabled patients might have little chance of escaping from a burning building. But a new escape system, currently undergoing trials here, could help to evacuate the building within minutes. Instead of carrying patients down the emergency stairs, nursing staff will simply ask them to jump. It isn't, of course, as bad as it might seem, because they'll be jumping through a tube dropped out of this specially adapted window.
The escape chute was a century-old idea, but as our cities grew upwards, the device desperately needed a revamp. And now we had the tech to make it happen.
We started to see, materials like Kevlar be used. And these kind of materials were more sturdy and also more protective.
And this new chute had 3 layers of defensive threads. A fireproof glass fibre outer layer could endure 800-degree heat. And an elastic middle layer let escapees slow down or stop.
It's the inner layer, though, that is the expensive part. It's made of pure woven Kevlar, which is the material they use in bulletproof vests and multi-million-dollar 12-metre racing yacht sails. Kevlar is actually up to 10 times stronger than steel, and it also has a very low coefficient of friction, which means that I can go as fast as I like without getting friction burns. See you at the bottom. Well, during that last part of the descent there, I was doing nothing to slow my descent. But if there was somebody standing by, then elderly or disabled patients would have nothing to worry about. A system like this costs about $36,000, but as it can save up to 30 people every minute, then it could be the best $36,000 ever spent.
The escape chute looks pretty cool, simple yet effective. However, can you imagine the building around you is burning and falling down and you're expected to make an orderly line? It's just not going to happen.
So why not skip the queue and abseil out the window? The exit traveller let you ditch the crowds, but demanded a focus far sharper than jumping down a chute.
Wow, here I am in one piece. 5 floors in about 20 seconds. This personal fire escape is called an exit traveller, and there's enough high tensile steel cable inside this cassette to get you down from 12 floors up. And yet it's light enough to carry in your hand luggage or pack in your suitcase. Well, I'll see you upstairs.
Obviously, climbing out a window or over a balcony is a last resort in a fire. But if you've looked for the exits and you've had your way blocked by flames or smoke, and the rescue teams aren't going to get to you before the fire does, then this may be a lifesaver. To begin with, you secure one end of the device using a steel cable and a carabiner. Now, I'll just step into the harness and head for the window. When I go over the edge, my weight drags on this bar and presses the brake shoes together. The heavier the load, the greater the braking effect. In practice, that means everyone, large or small, descends at the same rate, about half a metre a second. Well, now I'm here, I guess I may as well go again.
If jumping out the window didn't look like your thing, you were in luck. As high-rises kept soaring, we turned to more user-friendly technology.
The Burj Khalifa in Dubai, every 25 floors, there's essentially a refuge room. If that building catches on fire, you have to get to that refuge room, which can provide safe refuge for about 2 hours.
While fire safety moved fast, maritime safety was marooned. Scenes like this were becoming all too familiar. So inventors searched for a way to locate lost mariners faster.
The answer is this. It's called the Canad 406, and it's been developed here in Lorient on the coast of Brittany by the IESM company. A device which is helping redefine search and rescue operations around the world.
Unlike its predecessors, the Canad 406 EPIRB didn't rely on local radio contact. A transmitter picked up satellites. And it was encoded with vessel names and crew details. So lost seamen could be ID'd in seconds.
Well, it's not the best day for fishing, but today we thought we'd put it to the test in a simulated rescue operation.
With winds of 55 kilometres per hour, this practice run was on the brink of becoming a real-life rescue. But thanks to the Canad 406, survival chances were multiplied. Every 50 seconds, the beacon transmitted a signal to 10 receiving stations around the globe. It triggered an alert to the best search and rescue team.
Well, fortunately today that was a simulated situation, but in real life, in this sort of weather, I don't think it'd stand too much chance of lasting too long. And that's where the Canard system is so effective. It literally takes the search out of search and rescue.
The Canard 406 brought response times down from 3 hours to 1 hour. In emergency situations, every second counts, and being able to reduce the time by that much definitely saves lives.
Beacons like the Canad 406 are now the gold standard for mariners. Over 50,000 lives have been saved since their inception in the 80s. As cutting-edge science revolutionised emergency response missions, some inventors doubled down on low-tech solutions. The sea rescue was a 12-metre floating signal, which made spotting lost mariners hard to miss.
This easily spotted orange streamer is in fact made of polyethylene, which is the same material used for heavy-duty shopping bags. And every 4 feet, or 1¼ metres, are these hollow plastic struts. And they not only stop this streamer twisting onto itself, they also help it to stay afloat.
So this didn't do away with the need for example, satellite locating of an EPIRB, of some kind of an electronic beacon. But in that sort of final hunt for a person, something like this really would make them so much more visible and easy to find in those crucial minutes.
Designer Robert Yonover had already witnessed uses beyond sea emergencies.
On land, people, the hikers and snow skiers are embracing it also, because any person that's ever been lost, the first thing they say when they are saved is, hey, you flew right over me 4 times, but you didn't see me.
In the years that followed, the US military also realised its value. It is now an approved device for the Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard and Army. Test driving new disaster tech was bizarrely favoured among the Beyond 2000 hosts. They'd walk through fire, survive the seas and skies, and by 1999, it was time for a new challenge. So why not get buried alive and test the Avalanche? An avalanche survival vest that extracted oxygen from the snow so you could breathe while trapped beneath it.
Okay, we're ready to start burying your feet. Under. Stop.
This novel invention was the brainchild of physician Tom Crowley.
I was just laying in bed and the notion came to me, there's a lot of air inside the snow. Even avalanche debris, which is very dense, compacted snow, is about 50% air.
It led to some unorthodox research.
The original Avalanche stuff was this kind of plastic tubing that's covered with women's pantyhose of this kind. And then I just took all this stuff and buried it in my backyard under the snow and breathed through it, and was amazed to find that I could suck all kinds of air out of the snow through this outfit.
Thankfully, it had moved beyond the prototype. Tom had recruited base camp survivor Neil Beetleman to make a more scientific device.
Well, we had to size the surface area, of course, so that there's enough surface area to draw air from the snow into the breathing chamber and then through the mouthpiece.
Can we have a look at the insides of it?
You bet. Let me show you inside. This is the lung itself. It's made up of several parts. This exterior bag is a filter. This keeps the snow from getting inside of this breathing area.
And in practice, it promised to triple survival time.
Matt, we are at 55 minutes and everything looks up okay up here. I want you to keep breathing the same way on that Avalanche as they dig you out. Just stay on the mouthpiece and stay relaxed.
Being able to stay alive under snow for 60 minutes is really impressive. Depending on the avalanche and the snow around you, up to 20 minutes might be all the time you can survive. This type of technology could mean the difference between life and death.
Keep sliding back, slide back. Pretty intense, and that's just in a funny little world.
It was one of the strangest experiences I've ever had, but I knew that I could actually breathe under the snow and it was okay. I'm very cold.
At the end of the day, Mother Nature will always be stronger than humans. But with the right technologies, we can give ourselves a good crack at surviving things that we really shouldn't.
Thanks to ongoing safety innovations, natural disaster deaths are now half what they were in 1980. Humans aren't wired to chase danger. But when it came to extreme sports, we couldn't resist. Just ask former motorcycle world champion Wayne Gardner, who nearly died in pursuit of victory.
The problem was I hit it while I was accelerating across the wet grass, and I went in feet first, but unfortunately I was my bad luck as my leg went between the two ends of the cushions. My leg hit the fence and it broke my tibia bone, unfortunately.
Wayne's crash wasn't unique. Brutal injuries like this were becoming a rite of passage for all motorcycling greats.
Oh dear, Brady! When we hit stuff, it needs to be protected. So in a lot of the racetracks, sometimes you hit a concrete barrier, and this is not the way it's supposed to be.
So in 1992, race officials found a way to soften the blow.
Spike is a professional stuntman, so he's well used to hitting things pretty hard. But that was his first slam into one of these. It's called an air fence, for obvious reasons, and it's designed to take the full impact of a collision. Now, from the outside, it looks like just one big inflatable cushion, but its real value lies in its internal construction.
An inflated cushion at the front took the impact, while a middle compartment with vents expelled the compressed air.
In material science, air is such an important thing to use because it has this incredible capability to absorb the energy and dissipate it.
And unlike hay bales, it didn't go up in flames on impact.
The innovation of the air fence actually in some way allows the sport to get faster, and it allows the riders to perhaps be a little bit more risky. Fortunately for them, the air fence is protective.
Over the next 20 years, riders reached speeds of 350 kilometres an hour, close to F1 levels. But fatalities and serious injuries plummeted. While motorcyclists feared being flung from high-speed machines, these adrenaline junkies lived for it. Yet in 1993, we didn't think skydiving was that crazy, as long as you were strapped to an instructor.
That was quite a ride. I think I'm speechless. I don't know if I had a coherent thought all the way down. And thanks to Wayne, I didn't actually have to do anything. And that's good, because I don't know if I could have. Oh, but I guess...
You did excellent, excellent work.
I guess the next step is having to control it myself.
To report on new training technology, Amanda Keller was going to skydive solo.
You make a nice, smooth landing.
After a few hours of old-school methods, it was time for the skydiving simulator.
Jeff, bring up a picture of the drop zone from the overhead and put in the wind from the northwest.
All right, so first thing I should do is clear my brakes, right?
Yes.
This primitive virtual reality machine bridged the gap between the classroom and the sky.
Ooh, be heavy-handed. A bit heavy-handed. Now go ahead and swing to the left side. A little more left.
So novices could learn both good and bad parachuting techniques without consequence.
Okay, Amanda, we're going to give you a little challenge here. We're going to drop you in a different position, and we're not going to help you at all. Okay. So have a good time.
All right, so the first thing I do is clear the brakes. Even though I've got good theoretical knowledge, I'm finding controlling this computerized canopy a whole new ball game. I'm trying too hard to land on the target when really I should be concentrating on making a soft, safe landing. But I'm more than happy to make those mistakes here.
Because in the sky, that folly could be fatal. But at the moment of truth, at a little over 3,000 feet, Amanda took one giant leap, opened the parachute, zeroed in on the drop zone, and landed softly.
Oh, I stood up! Oh, that was fantastic. I felt completely in control the whole way. That's so different to yesterday. That just feels wonderful.
It's extraordinary to think that it would just take 24 hours to go from having to do this as a tandem to be able to do it by yourself, jump out of a plane thousands of meters above the ground and land is just, yeah, not for me.
But fast forward 30 years and many more industries have jumped on board. Around a quarter of businesses now use augmented reality for training. Some believe it's cut workplace injuries by 70%. As fresh skydivers nailed the landing first go, in one of Europe's fastest growing sports, experienced athletes were missing the mark.
Some of my friends had serious accidents. They had broken pelvis and problems with the back. And so I was looking for a solution.
And in 1995, Oliver Meyer had found one. The chute airbag promised to protect paragliders' spines and save them from injury.
It might seem like a simple enough idea, but it took the designers 2 years and more than 30 different models to perfect this airbag. The challenge was to quickly inflate the bag without affecting the aerodynamics of the glider. These 3 rather large gusseted valves positioned below the pilot's legs allow the air to rush in and fill up the cushions in the first few critical seconds of flight.
It softened takeoff without compromising the flight.
It's incredible that you don't notice the bag when you're flying. It doesn't seem to create any drag. Yeah.
This was a really clever idea because it didn't spoil the fun and the thrill.
Quite incredible! Woo-hoo!
You didn't know it was there until it did what it was supposed to do and protected you when you landed.
Woo!
Okay.
That was amazing.
So you enjoyed it?
Not many paragliders now fly with airbag attachments. But among those who do are pilots who believe the technology has helped save their spines and lives. 3 years earlier in South Africa, a majestic yet fearsome beast was threatening surfers like Gabby Botha.
I was sitting, waiting for the wave, also body surfing, on my own completely. And I felt this chewing sensation on my right foot. So I turned back, and the shark was sitting in front of me. I just kicked and screamed and shouted. And next thing I knew, I was on a wave, going back to the beach.
And do you still bear the scar?
Yeah, I've got rather large scar, yeah.
Oh.
Shark netting promised to reduce further attacks. But the Shark Board of Natal were working on a more humane fix, an electrical deterrent.
To create the electromagnetic field, there are a series of these probes. At each end is a stainless steel electrode, and in between is resin-filled PVC that creates an inert barrier. Now, this whole thing is powered by 240 volts, but by the time it's gone through this variable pulse and frequency firing device, the nature of that current and the field it produces is quite unique.
And what better way to demonstrate than with human bait? 3 poles and a spindly cage did nothing to stop sharks from circling, until the probes were activated.
So sharks have this amazing ability to sense electrical currents in the water. So the idea behind this technology is that if you use a strong enough pulse, it could actually be quite uncomfortable and confusing to the sharks, so they would prefer to remove themselves from the area.
Researchers were now packaging the electrodes in a box, so wary surfers could attach it to their boards and slash the risk of attack by 60%.
They make it 60% less likely you'll be eaten by a shark. I mean, how good is that? Seatbelts don't guarantee you won't die, but they make it a hell of a lot less likely.
While the electrical deterrent was no silver bullet, many surfers and divers have now embraced them.
All you got to do is move from how dangerous things are now to how dangerous the technology makes it. And if it makes it less, it's good.
In the years before 2000, technology stepped up to protect us when we needed it most. Whether soaring through the skies, exploring the depths of the ocean, or trying to survive when our bodies were failing. These were decades of bold discovery and hope, where we realized science and technology could save the world.